Hey y'all, welcome back. I'm Shayna Cersei and I'm so excited to paint with you today. Today we're going to be doing another page in our watercolor journal books. And if you're new here, we are going to be using, or my supplies include, this is a 6x9 Bao watercolor sketchbook. It has 100% cotton paper in it. 140-pound cold press is the texture and weight. I am also partial to and use almost exclusively at this point my core watercolor paints, QOR by Golden. And then this is a 24 color palette. You don't need this many for sure, but whatever brand you have will probably work just fine. I tend to use mostly very popular colors that you can find in multiple brands. In addition to that, I also have my brushes. I have 3 round brushes in varying sizes. I have a size 10, a size 6, and a size 3. These are all Princeton brushes, but different lines in their Princeton series. You can find the brushes that you enjoy or work best for you. This is a Princeton Select, Velvet Touch, and an Aqua Elite. And then lastly, we're not only going to be painting today, but we're going to be adding some ink. So ink and wash. My preferred right now form of ink is in this Lamy pen, Lamy. And then these pens come with ink in them, but it's not waterproof ink. You can certainly use it to draw with if you're not planning to add any water medium to it. But you can also purchase cartridges that can be added to these pens and add your own waterproof ink. So link in the description to all of the supplies and materials I use, including the pen, the ink I purchased to put in it. And we're gonna get started. There's lots of other pen options too. You don't need this fancy fountain pen. I just happen to love these, but Micron pens are a great choice. So we're gonna do some florals. It is springtime. It is the time of year where everything is about to explode and bloom. So I'm going to do a floral illustration today, I think. You saw me wet all of my paint here on my palette, not because I'm going to use it, but because I'm going to clean it up. So these were from some of our last paintings in our journal, and I'm done with these colors at this point. I could have used them though, if I wanted to. All right, so I'm gonna do some florals. We're gonna do a vertical painting with ink and wash, and basically I'm gonna put down paint in a suggestion of florals kind of creeping up a vine. Nothing specific, no particular type of flower. They're just gonna be petaled flowers creeping up a vine. We'll add some foliage, and then we're gonna go and add ink for more details as it goes up. So I'm definitely going to use sap green for my greens and then I often accompany sap green with a little phthalo blue green shade if I want to change the tone of the green and make it a cooler color. So we'll introduce both of those. Here, let's plot these out ahead of time. So my sap green, introduce a little phthalo blue to that sap green. Do we want to do a blue flower painting? Or maybe, you know what, I'm going to go purple. I'm going to go Dioxazine purple. I'm not going to mix my purple today. Surprise, surprise. So this is Dioxazine purple, but if you don't have a purple in your palette and you want to use magenta and a blue to make a purple, that would be grand. So Dioxazine purple, and we're going to introduce a yellow. I'm going to go with cadmium yellow. This is a medium shade. And then last but not least is going to be Payne's gray. Actually, no, I'm not going to introduce any Payne's gray because I'm going to use my ink to do all of my darker details, I think. All right, so let's start with, I'm just deciding whether I'm going to draw. So I want to draw kind of a stake in the ground and then these flowers kind of creeping up it. But let's just do the flowers. I'll draw the stake later. Yes, if you wanted to do it in pencil first, you could, but I don't want to paint it in. I want to just draw that part in. You could draw it in first if you have waterproof ink in your pen. So I have waterproof ink. You know what? No, I'm not going to do that. You're getting the full thought process today. All right, so actually the first thing I'm going to do is I am going to take my purple, and the flowers that they're going to be daisy-like. So they're going to have thin petals and yellow centers. They're going to be purple though, and I'm going to try to create them in a couple different directions. So let's start by doing, I'm going to take my size 10 brush, and I am just going to create. And if you feel the need to draw out your composition first, by all means. There are times I do that, and there are times that I just go for it. I'm going to make these a little more sloppy. They're not going to have really defined. I don't want it to be too defined. I want it to be a little more ethereal in the color, because I want to add the structure, the real nice structure with the ink. All right, so we have one facing this way, and if we were to creep up, maybe one, do one out this way, like just this side, and then we're going to do some short dashes here, because this is going to be like the center of it. And again, I'm not being too, keep getting drops of water over here. So again, leaving a center open, but leaving like a little cup inside. Trying to be a little looser. Let's get a little smaller as we go up. No, it doesn't look like a whole lot right now, but this is pretty light purple. Now I'm just going to fill in a few like purple blobs here and there that we will, there we go, we'll turn into flowers later. So we have this nice kind of wider, larger flowers at the bottom, smaller at the top. Let's fill in some greenery as we go up. And I'm still using my size 10 brush, so I'm using my large brush. I might only use this size brush. Using my sap green. I definitely want to, let's mix that sap green and that phthalo blue together to get slightly different greens. And again, I'm keeping these leaves loose. More of a suggestion of where foliage would be. Let's drop in some darker color into some of these wet little leaves. All right, after we kind of have this piece together, I'm going to let this dry. While that's drying, I think some of our flowers are dry enough that I can add some yellow centers. So I'm going to go with my size 3 brush actually, and my cadmium yellow. This is the medium. I'm just going to drop in. And even on the kind of damper areas, actually I'm not going to worry about it. Here. And actually, I'm not going to put yellow in that one because you're not going to see it. Lovely. Pick up a little darker purple. And I am going to come in and put a little bit of structure in this darker purple color. A little more contrast in a few spots. Actually, I'm regretting it. I should have left it light. You can always go back in. Again, if you have waterproof ink, we can always go back in later. So I'm kind of making a mess of these by taking that dark purple and blending it out a bit. So let's leave the rest of them. I'm going to go back in later if I feel it needs it. We're going to stick with light purple. I'm going to add the ink, and then we'll see if we want to add some darker purple in later to pop up the intensity and the contrast. All right, let this all dry, and then we're going to come in and add our ink. All right, this is nice and dry now. And now we're going to add in our ink. And the first thing I'm going to do is create this line that goes up through these. It's going to be like this. And we're going to square it off at the top. It's going to come back down. And it's going to kind of get skinnier as it goes down. So we're angling it a bit. All right, so now we have this post. And again, you could have drawn this in pencil early on so that you could work around it. I just didn't have to erase and like worry about overlapping and all of that. And I knew for me, I would be able to draw it in later. All right, I'm going to give this post a little grain or texture of wood, working around my little vines here, little creeping flowers. And we will add some more that kind of feel like they're wrapping around it at the end. Okay. Get a little depth of a top here. Beautiful. Okay, now let's make these flowers sing. So I'm going to just start going over and creating my petaled shapes in my ink. I'm going to overlap some of them. They're not all going to be perfect because flowers are not perfect. They have little gaps in them and holes and little crooked leaves. All right, so those are the petals. The centers, I kind of create a border here. And just put a little texture inside. This one, petals are on the side. This is the center, little dome-like shape. And because it's foreshortened, like these petals are down in front, you're not going to see, you're just going to see the little tips of them. Same thing here. These are going to be angled kind of this way. All right, so these little ones at the top, make sure to go a little smaller. This one I'm just gonna do full facing petal, kind of fully facing out. This one is going to be fully kind of closed off. We don't see any of the center. So they all just kind of attach here. I'm going to give it a stem that doesn't exist right now. This one, there's this little tiny bit of yellow there. There we go. Okay, so let's give these leaves and this little vine some attention, this creeping bit at the edge of these. So this one, we're going to give it a stem that's going to come around this way. Over here, we're going to give this one a stem. And you don't have to draw everything that, let me rephrase. Everything you draw doesn't have to be something that's already painted there. I can draw an open set of leaves that have nothing to do with anything that's painted, or even another flower we could add, or vines. Here. So if I wanted to, let's see, and I don't even have to draw or give ink to every leaf that's drawn either. So let's give this one a twin leaf here. It's attached. It has no watercolor in it, and that's fine. This one we could just do half the leaf and don't even have to fill the whole thing in. Let's do a couple of open ones over here. And right in here, this is this one that wraps around here. And you know what? Let's go, if it went this way, it would wrap and come this way. All right, now I do feel like we need to go darker on some of the colors in a few places. And I'm going to come back in with my size 3 and my purple. I think I'm going to concentrate mostly on the center area of some of the flowers and then blend it out. So like down here, closest to the center. And again, wow, this brush holds so much water even though it's so little. Then, what was I saying? I don't even know. Hope you hear all the water effects in the background are going on right now at my house. And it just gives some depth to these flowers. It makes this center part look a little more concave. Let's get up here into these little ones. You have to be careful when you blend out, especially in smaller spaces, that you don't just end up making a flat wash of like even color over the whole thing. That, and then let's see, let's go back in with some darker green. I think I'm going to switch to my medium-sized brush. I thought I was going to stick with just the size 10, but I'm using all three. And just adding some contrast. To a few of these, and you can just see how that starts to help things separate a little bit, not be as flat. Going with that phthalo blue-green shade. You can create some interesting colors. But keeping it loose. This will be challenging for people who like everything to be neat and tidy. Don't worry about neat and tidy. So we have, and I could paint this in like a brown color or add a little suggestion of, you know, let's add a suggestion of brown to it. I have some burnt sienna in here, and I'm going to add a bunch of water to it, maybe a little yellow. I am just going to add a suggestion, not the whole thing, a little bit, and that's it. All right, I think we're done. You can always go back in, so as this dries, the only thing you can't do, even with waterproof ink, I mean, you can do it, you can do anything you want, but might not result in what you were hoping, is if things are still wet, adding waterproof ink to it, they'll just all bleed together. But like this is dry down here, so I'm gonna add some more just details to the petals, some texture. But like, I'm gonna skip that leaf because it's still wet. Even this one's a little damp, and my ink is like getting sucked out of my pen right down into the paint. You can see there how this is still damp and the ink just like pours out. So just be mindful of that. There we go. I'm going to make these little vines a little darker. And I think I'm done. All right, I hope you enjoyed this one. Thanks for joining me. Don't forget to check out the description for links to supplies and materials. So my pen, my brushes, my paints, my sketchbook, as well as a few other things are all in there if you're wondering. Feel free to leave a comment. Save it for later if you're going to come back to this project later. Share with a friend, and I hope to see you again soon for our next watercolor journal page. Thanks, y'all. Happy painting.